Namaste. Welcome to Vishwa Yoga. My name is Vishwa. Today I will talk about the major tantric texts, its type, organization, and list of scriptural texts of major tantric traditions that I have covered in this series. These are scriptural texts and the real source of traditional tantra, not the contemporary ones. In case you are interested to know about the organization of all the ancient Indian scriptures, I have done a separate video on that, and I will add a link in this video too. But here I will talk from the Tantra perspective only. Please keep in mind that Tantra system is not linear. There is not just one path. There are many options, and if you read scriptures, you may come across some contradictions too. My effort here is to give you a very simplified version for an easier understanding. So let me take you at the highest level first to understand the logical arrangements of all the literature and its perspective. In this diagram, you probably already know the extreme left and extreme right, the non-believers and one-life believers literature. But I will be talking about the heart, starting from Vedas, but the focus will be on Tantra. The emphasis of the Vedas is to connect to the Supreme, called Brahman, which is formless and beyond guna. However, Tantra begins with the form and then leads to the formless. The goal is the same, but the approach is different. Though you can see the different flavors of the deities present in the form of Shiva, Shakti, or Vishnu, they represent different aspects along with contradictions. For example, Shiva represents hermit's way of life. So there is an emphasis on renunciation and knowledge, even though he is a family man, but always seated in deep meditation. Then Shakti or Devi represents nature's way to follow natural law and live in the world, married to Shiva, who asks him to come down from the Mount Kailas and take care of his devotees. On the other hand, Vishnu represents the householder's way. He takes major incarnation as Ram and follows the rule, but in another incarnation as Krishna, known to be a rule breaker to establish dharma, and teaches the highest knowledge in the middle of the war. Whereas Brahma represents the human way. Even being a trinity, some of his stories show human-like weakness. The same energy is presented in different forms but explained in different ways, so that the ordinary mind with different temperaments can be able to grasp it easily. Because to digest the abstract concept of Brahman is not easy for all. Now from here, let me jump into the classification of texts. On the highest level, the texts are classified into two types, Agama and Nigama. The word Agama means that which has come to us as revealed knowledge. These texts are called manuals of divine worship. Scholars say Agama's text neither accepts nor rejects the Vedas. But in reality, the Vedic mantras are used in Agama practices with slight modification. Agama is now popularly known as Tantra, but technically there is a slight difference, which I will tell you in a moment. Now Nigama. The word Nigama is understood as the highest truth. Nigama also means the final truth or conclusion after applying all the logics to counter all the objections. And most scholars consider Vedas as Nigama. It is said that even the sentences of the commands contained in Vedas are referred to as Nigama. But in Tantric texts, there is also Nigama text, which I will share in a bit. Now, going one step further, these scriptures can be further divided into two types. One is called Shruti, which means revealed knowledge, considered as the primary source, and the second type is called Smriti, which means remembered knowledge, and that is considered as the secondary source. Both Agama and Nigama literature has these two types. I will focus on the Agama scriptures here, as the Nigama details are already covered in another video. So there are three types of Agamas or Tantra scriptures. One, directly revealed. Second, authored by great seers. And the third one is authored by the masters. Now let's understand the Agama and Nigama within Tantra. Most of the Tantra texts are in the form of conversation between male and female deity. For example, in Shaiva and Shakta tradition, Agama texts are primarily based on the conversation between Shiva and Shakti. Each one is taking a role as a teacher and a student. So it is said that when Shiva as a teacher revealed the knowledge to Shakti, it is called Agama. But when Shakti as a teacher revealed the knowledge to Shiva, it is called Nigama, and also referred as Tantra. So the word Nigama can be confusing if you are not aware of the context, but in general, it is mostly referred to as Vedas. And Tantric tradition is generally called Agama tradition, which you already know has three main branches: Vaishnava Agama, Shaiva Agama, and Shakta Agama. So Tantra is technically Shakta Agamas, which worships and regards the Divine Mother or Shakti as Supreme Godhead. But logically, Tantra is a subsystem of Agama, but also recognized as Nigama or conclusive highest knowledge of Agama. It is important to mention that the Agama and Tantra words are used interchangeably and they mean the same. Now let me talk about the predominant text in these three main traditions. To differentiate, in Vaishnava tradition, the majority of Agama texts are named as Samkhya, which means the collection of verses. But in Shaiva tradition, there are three types of text. First, Agama itself, then Yamal, which means the couple, represents the non-dual state of Shiva and Shakti. It is dedicated to the realized souls called Bhairavas. And these Yamal texts brings the importance of Shakti to Shaivas. So Yamala texts can be shared between Shaiva and Shakta Agama. In some place, Shiva reveals the knowledge, and in other, Shakti does. The famous Vigyan Bhairav Tantra is technically a Yamal text derived from Rudra Yamala. But the Dhamma texts were revealed by Shiva for his attendants, which includes the knowledge of extraordinary or supernatural powers referred to as Yogamaya or magic practices. Also, there are major sutra texts used in Tantra. To name the few: Shiva Sutra, Kalpa Sutra, Samkhya Sutra, Yoga Sutra, and Kama Sutra. Most of the Shakta Agama text is known as Tantra, though today, due to the popularity of the word Tantra, many other Agama texts contain the word Tantra. You might wonder what these Agama scriptures talk about, how they are organized. So if you put all the scriptures together, they emphasize on four major areas. First one is philosophy and the wisdom, called Gyan or Vidyapad, consists of the doctrine, the philosophical and spiritual knowledge, the knowledge of reality and liberation. The second one is Yogapad, including precepts and practices of yoga, including physical and mental disciplines. The third one is rituals and prayers, called Kriyapad, which consist of rules, rituals, construction of temples, design principles for sculpting or carving the temple, and consecration of idols of deities for worship. Also include different forms of initiation or diksha. And the fourth one is code of conduct called Charyapad, which lays down rules of conduct of worship called puja, observance of ceremonies, rituals, festival, and atonement or prayaschit. I also must mention here that in many tantric texts, some portion, especially that knowledge or practice which needs to be secret, uses a twilight language called Sandhyabhasa. For example, in some place in the practice it says that do A, but in reality that means do be. It is done with a purpose so that the power of the practices are not misused by anyone or goes into the wrong hand. Only a qualified teacher can reveal that knowledge after evaluating a student. So now I will share the list of main scriptures or texts in Vaishnava, Shaiva and Shakta tradition. Please keep in mind, I am going to mostly exclude Vedic and Puranic texts here. But you must know that Atharva Veda is known as Tantric Veda. Then there are many Tantric Upanishads and Puranas and commentaries are there. I will be primarily referring to Agama or Tantra text here. It is beyond the scope to include all the possible texts, and not all the texts are easily available either. And only limited number of these texts are translated into another language such as English. Most people interested in Tantra must be grateful to Sir John Woodroffe, who translated over 20 Tantra texts into English during British time in India. How he got interested in Tantra is an interesting story that I will share it separately. But his famous book, The Serpent Power, introduced the knowledge of Tantra, Chakra and Kundalini to the West. So the first one is the list of texts from Vaishnava Agama. There are more than 200 texts, but these 20 major texts relate to the Pancharatra school, which is the most popular tradition still alive today. The most revered text, Bhagavad Gita, is part of the Vaishnava Agama. In Shaiva tradition, 28 Agamas are considered the most important ones. There are two major systems. One is Southern Shaiva Agama called Shaiva Siddhanta, in which most texts are Agama. Then the second one is Northern Shaiva Agama called Kashmir Shaivism. Here you can see the Agama texts are popularly referred to as Tantra. In Shakta tradition, depending on the school, either 27, 64 or 77 texts are considered the most important ones out of more than 200 texts. Here there are two major systems as well. One is Kalikula and the other one is Srikula. There are also a huge number of non-sectarian texts, including some of the magic, supernatural powers, alchemy, astrology, and tantric mantras. I have also included Yamal and Damar texts here. The majority of these tantric texts are not known to many people. I have also added a separate section for the most important text on yoga, Ayurveda, and Kama for love, sex, or erotica practices. Those sexual practices are mentioned in some of the Shaiva Shakta texts, plus yoga and Ayurveda texts. Kama Sastra text aids as the supporting and supplementary text to the sexual practices for pleasure and intimate relationships. Today, many people know the names of these texts in the area of yoga, Ayurveda, and Kama. Samkhya philosophy is the common concept among Tantra with a slight difference. Also the foundation of yoga and Ayurveda. I have already covered the Samkhya and yoga philosophy in another video. You can check on that. Tantra philosophy and its building blocks, I will cover it at some other time. So this was the summary of Tantric scriptures. I hope this information gave you a quick peek in the fundamentals of authentic and traditional Hindu Tantra system. Now, it is also practical truth that many people just love to read the philosophy, but when it comes to practice, they find many excuses to skip that. But Tantra without practice has no value. So in my coming videos, I will gradually focus on the practical aspects of Tantra, going back to the first component of the first pillar of Tantra and talk about the types and path of a Tantra seeker or a student. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day. Namaste. Thank you so much for listening. If you like the information, please subscribe, like, and share so that everyone else can also enjoy this.